All right, everybody, what's going on? I hope everybody can hear me fine. It's your man Frank, coming to y'all live and direct with another edition of Views from the Man Cave. I don't know what's in, I don't know what my sister Christina doing over there.
I don't know what happened. I keep hearing something ticking and banging. Oh shoot, maybe my headpiece. Okay, we good now?
Well, we gonna, yeah.
Okay.
How you been? Though? How's everything?
Everything is everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got some stuff to talk about, but but I hope everybody's having a good Tuesday. So before we get into the topic today, you know what I mean? I just want to go over a couple things. I just want to talk about a few things, and then we're gonna hop right into our topic today. So first and foremost, I want to start out with a sister of mine who's on Facebook, who's doing her thing. You know, my sister Kimberly Mosberry. I just caught, you know, she's selling some things out there. She's got some merchandise. A matter of fact, let me put it up here for y'all. So she's got some merchandise out here. My sister Kim, you know what I mean, she's doing great things. I actually copped a shirt a couple days ago, but she's selling merchandise out here, shirts, hoodies, um, she got mugs, all of that. You know what I mean? Everything you need. Um, so I want y'all to support this system. If you need to get your black purse, gear up. You know what I mean? If you haven't done so far this year, man, go ahead and cop that. You know what I mean? Now's a good time to do it. You know what I mean? Support black businesses. Support our sisters, man. She does great work. Like I said, I ordered from the sister a few days ago. She already hit me up. As soon as I ordered, she said, I'm starting it right now. So she did everything by hand. She let me know that everything is good to go. So she was letting it, I think she had finished it up. She was letting it dry. And then when everything's set, ready to rock and roll, she's going to send that to me. So support our sister, man. You know what I mean? If you need something, if you need to get your gear right, holler at her. She's on Facebook, by her name, Kimberly Mosberry. If you type her in, she's going to come up, you know what I mean, get at her, get in her DM or whatever, and see what you can do about copying you some merchandise, man. So, she does great work. So I just wanted to shout that sister out. You know what I mean? I can't wait for my stuff to come in the mail. I hope it gets here in time for my trip. You know what I mean? In a couple of weeks, I'm going to, I'm headed to Dubai, for New Year. So if it gets here in time, I'm definitely going to rock that and support the sister and let people know what's going on with that. So also, I wanted to talk about this COVID testing. You know what I mean? I know my sister has seen it. I know Shantina has seen it. What's going on with the COVID testing and all of that. I'm going to play a video, and then I'm going to ask you something about this whole COVID thing. So I'm going to play a video first about, I just saw this. I think the brother, the OG Tariq Flex, put this on his Facebook. I'm sure he put it on his Instagram as well. But, there was a hospital in, I think it was in Boston, Massachusetts. Shout out to Boston. My wife, she went to college up there in Mass at Waltham University, got a degree in accounting out there, once upon a time. But there was this hospital in Boston, and and they were just doing a little bit of cooning and shucking and jiving about this COVID thing. So I'm gonna play this video. I'm gonna let y'all see what they're doing, how they're trying to get us motivated and excited about taking this vaccine. And then I'm gonna ask my sister about it. So y'all hold on, give me 1 second. I'll play that for y'all right now. Uh, there were some people in the chat that said that my sound was low. How is it now? If the sound is good, just give me a 1. Just put a 1 in the chat for me if the sound is good.
It's still, to me, it sounds still a little low.
It's a little low? All right, I'm going to take these headphones off.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. All right, how about now?
Much better, much better.
Good now? All right, we good. All right, sorry about that. All right, so we're going to rock and roll. Matter of fact, what's going on? Let me do this. See, my cousin is in the building. My cousin Brandon, what's up? What's popping? I see y'all, man. Ian, Alex, everybody. All right, so I think we better now. All right. So, what do you think about that video, Shantina? What do you think about, folks trying to make us the face of this vaccine and trying to, play around and get us all hyper motivated in a very ghetto, kind of way in order to get us excited about, being the first ones to run up in these hospitals and take these vaccines. What you think about that?
I don't know if I should laugh or cry, but I will tell you they target us because we're, as Dr. Claude Anderson says, we're the permanent underclass at this point, and your permanent your underclass or when you're a peasant. So pretty much that's how we're treated, as you can see, and this is why we've become the face of this vaccine nonsense. And I find it I shouldn't say I find it odd, but I'm noticing that they're using Black women as the face of it as well. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I was just going to allude to that. Like, we all know, like my sister said, Dr. Claude Anderson says, Black people are at the bottom. We're at the bottom economically, politically, by any measure that means anything, we're at the bottom. So a lot of times when you see, certain things rolled out, when you see, groups of people wanting to try certain things, they always come to us first. You know what I mean? They always come to the Black community to try to get us to be the guinea pigs. We're the guinea pig, for the world. I see you all, Heart, NB. We're the guinea pigs for the world. Any type of new trend, any type of fashion, any type of vaccine, we're always made the face of these things. We're the guinea pigs for these things. So it's no shock to me that, you see things like that. You know what I mean? When they're trying to promote these things in other communities, they're not doing any, nobody's doing the wobble or the nay-nay or none of that. You know what I mean? Like they come at people, other groups of people in a more mature fashion, and they do it, and they come at us in a suspect way because we allow it. You know what I mean? Unfortunately. So there are people out there that saw that video that are going to say, hey, look, I thought that was kind of cool. I like doing the nay-nay. I like doing the Dougie too. I like doing the electric slide. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take this vaccine. You know what I mean? They've already made us the face of it, already. The first person to take the vaccine was a Black woman, this sister right here. So, they put her out there and, because a lot of people are very, a lot of Black folks are very hesitant about taking this vaccine. You know what I mean? Straight up and down. Like we're not trying to take it. We're not trying to do anything, have any type of connection with this vaccine at all. A lot of Black people are just saying, nah, we're not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? So, and rightfully so. When you look at historically with the Tuskegee experiments and things like that, and how historically a lot of Black people, we were used, in a disrespectful fashion as far as, with slavery and medications and things like that. We don't really have a lot of trust for other groups of people, and we definitely don't have a trust, for the hospital, especially Black men. We're not going to nobody's hospital. You know what I mean? Like that's just something that we don't do. You know what I mean? So, so they're making us the face of this vaccine. They're doing all these dances and all these videos, and they're bringing Black women in the front to kind of promote this stuff for us to be comfortable enough to want to go and get these vaccines and take it. And right now, we don't know what's going on with these vaccines. We don't know what's in them. We don't know the side effects. All we know is that these medications were rushed, they were hurried, they were passed by the CDC and all of that. And then, they've been thrown basically into the Black community and told us to take it. They're trying to right now fight for policies to force a lot of Black people, a lot of poor Black people to take this medication. I've already seen it in the papers, in the news, where they're trying to get people who are on public assistance. They're trying to force them to take this vaccine, and threatening them. I see you, T-Tar. What's good, bro? And they're trying to force poor Black people to take this vaccine, and they're threatening them. I see you, D. They're threatening them by taking away their benefits, their vouchers, and things like that. So a lot of people who may be hesitant or may be reluctant to take the medication are going to feel like they have to, or they're going to be put out on the street. You know what I mean? Me personally, I'm not taking it.
I think it's unfortunate that they're using specifically Black women, you know what I mean, to push this, you know, to push this medication and to push this vaccine on Black people. And I think it's unfortunate, but until we get our mind right, until we see the bigger picture out here, you know, these things are going to continue to happen. So it's unfortunate, but you know what I mean, it is what it is. I'm just tired of you know, of us being the guinea pig, and I'm tired of them using Black women, you know, to push this stuff out. And I'm tired of, honestly, I'm tired of Black women saying, okay, I'm gonna do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, we get no benefit. You know, we get no trinkets of value. We get nothing, you know, by being the guinea pig for other people. You know what I mean? Straight up and down. We haven't learned that yet. We didn't learn it in Tuskegee. We didn't learn it, you know, throughout history. Every time, you know, when things like this happen, unfortunately, there's a lot of Black people who run at the opportunity to be a guinea pig. You know, we run to the opportunity in order to be used and abused by other groups of people, because we feel like on a lower level, on a lower vibrational level, we feel like, you know, if we do this for them, you know, we'll get something out of it. We'll get something tangible. We'll get some kind of trinket. We'll get a pat on the head. You know, we'll get this and that from them. If we just allow them, you know, if we allow ourselves to be their guinea pig. And that's never happened. You look at history, it's never happened for you. You know what I mean? And if it didn't happen for our ancestors, it's not going to happen for you now. You know what I mean? So I don't want us to be the guinea pig for other groups. You know, everybody in this country is allegedly affected by COVID. So make other groups of people the face of it. You know what I mean? Even the people who okayed it, the people who brought it out here before the people have come out and said, you know what, I'm not taking it right now. You know what I mean? I don't need it. I'm rich. I'm gonna let these other people take it. I'm gonna let them take it first. You know, we're the trial run. You know what I mean? That's basically what we are. We're the trials for this medication to see how it works. So, you know, I want us to get our mind right, man, and be focused. Stop playing these games, man. Stop allowing ourselves to be used, you know, by these groups of people, because we don't benefit from it. You know what I mean? It's just, it is what it is. I see you, Cornelius, out there in Facebook. All right. So the topic of this live today, man, I got my sister on. The topic of this live today is the cost of consciousness, you know what I mean, and the wages of wisdom. I was sitting back one day and I was just thinking about conversations that I've had with certain groups of people, you know what I mean, Shantina being one of them, my man G, shout out to Gabe, Ultimate Black Man Radio, you know, a few other people, you know what I mean, conversations that I've had about life, you know what I mean, about a plethora of things. And I just got to thinking and pondering about, you know, all the things that having a certain level of consciousness has cost me. You know what I mean? All the things that having a certain degree of wisdom has cost me or benefited me. You know what I mean? And so I just wanted to talk about it. And I know my sister's very deep. You know what I mean? My sister put out a book. I'm going to put that book, the link to that book, in the description box on YouTube for the show. So after the show, you know, if you guys want to cop her book, please do that. I've copped it myself. I've read it. And a lot of what the sister wrote about in her book and talks about, you know, on her social media outlets, inspired me to do this live today. So I just wanted to ask my sister, I'm going to let my sister Shantina start off and just kind of talk to the people about, you know, what has the cost of consciousness been for you? What has your path to enlightenment, to spirituality, to your level of understanding, your level of thinking, you know, what has that cost you in your life? You know what I mean? How has that affected you in your life, you know, with your family, you know, in relationships, you know, all of those things. Just kind of talk to the people about that, about your journey and some of the things that it's cost you and some of the things that you've gained from
it. I'm trying not to make this too long.
We got time.
But what it's cost me, I really can't. Well, it's cost me my old self, and my old self was that person who I thought I was. It was the person who I was programmed to be. You read in my book in the intro when I used the reference of RoboCop. and I explained how, he was programmed by OCP. And that's pretty much how I operated in my life. I was just programmed to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to have this idea of what good is, and to always function under that perceived goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But it cost me my authentic self. And when I began to awaken, it started pretty much with, I guess, maybe like a couple of mild psychosis. I used to, I couldn't sleep at night. I would hallucinate. I wake up and I would see, stuff running around and floating around in the room. And I pretty much thought I was going crazy. But it was really the beginning of my awakening. Something out of this world was trying to wake me up to my true self, because I was out of alignment with who I was, and I was on the wrong path. And all of that, the mental and the emotional turmoil, it manifested into my physical body. And I was in my late 20s, and that's supposed to be your prime, where you're, supposed to be healthy and vibrant and feeling on top of the world. And I was miserable. I had shoulder aches, back aches, headaches, swollen ankles, I was a total mess. And I realized that I had to go back and reclaim those lost parts of myself, and to dig deep into my ancestry, really. And I just had to put the pieces of myself back together. But it started with me going backwards and getting still, being quiet, removing myself from certain toxic environments and people, and just, like I said, getting quiet and sitting under a tree and just really hearing spirit, going to places where I could put my soul back together. And that's really, a person, I heard a person, he described it so perfectly. And he pretty much said, sometimes life is like a puzzle. You have to put the pieces together and solve it. And it's really not about winning or losing. It's just about solutions and solving the problem, putting everything back together. And that pretty much sums it up for me. Because it wasn't about, as I said, winning or losing. I had to rid myself of that duality of thinking, oh, I've lost something, because you really don't lose. I had to learn how to look at it as me learning lessons versus me failing or losing in life. So that's pretty much been my path to enlightenment. But as I said, it started with my ancestry. And I think that's a big part of why so many people can't awaken, because they don't even know who they are. Because I said to someone before, in the and I hate to even say this, but in the Black community, it's so unbalanced because of the matriarchy, and we're raising families, and we're really building communities on the backs of the children. And we're supposed to be standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, not our children. And this is why we grow up to be so broken, because we have these children unplanned, and then we put them in this position where they have to be the emotional anchors or the emotional crutches of the household, because it's just the mother there without the covering and the emotional support that a husband is supposed to bring to the table. So you have generations of people who have no purpose, who are just wandering through life. And I was fortunate enough to wake up. Right now, I feel distant from my family, because nobody gets it. Nobody cares about the importance of husbands and fathers. Everything is just about moms and matriarchy or the gynocracy. And that's pretty much why I feel kind of, like I'm walking it by myself, and I can't really share a lot of things with my family. I've just chosen to stay quiet and I'm pretty much a mystery at this point to a lot of people. But I will say that this journey has led me to people like you, Gabe, and a lot of people who I consider, I guess, my tribe. But it's a really small circle, and I appreciate it. And it's not, I don't view it as a bad thing. Sometimes it's good to have a small circle because it's I get quantity, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah.
So yeah.
I have a very similar story, man. Like, you know, I put it in the description for this show a quote from James Baldwin. You know what I mean? James Baldwin, we all know the brother, you know, I'm not your Negro, all of that. And James Baldwin said something. He said, to be black and to be conscious is to be in a constant state of anger. And I share that brother's sentiment. You know what I mean? You know, until I found a good tribe of people that I could build with, I was constantly and consistently in a state of anger. I was always upset. You know, when I was younger, a lot of you guys, you know my story. I talk about it all the time. You know, I didn't have a great relationship with my father, so that masculine element in the household really wasn't there for me, like a lot of us. And so when I was a kid, you know, my family would get together all the time. You know, like we would do cookouts and we would have, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas and things like that. We would always have these little get-togethers. And I was young at the time, and you know, the grown folks would always be talking about something. You know, it didn't matter what it was, sports, you know, religion, you know, politics, whatever. There would always be these dope conversations, whatever. You know, I thought they were anyway. And I would always want to get involved in them. You know what I mean? But I was young, you know what I mean? So we, you know, in black folks' house, you got the grown folks' room or the grown folks' table, you got the kid table. So I was a kid, so I had to go sit down at the kids' table, but I would always listen in at these conversations. And I would always, you know, want to kind of jump in and act like I had a reason to be in there and say something. I always wanted to say something real deep to kind of let them know that, you know, Frank know what he's talking about, or JR know what he's talking about. All my family, they call me, you know, JR because I'm a junior. So, you know, I always wanted to. So from that moment, I always had this yearning to want to be, you know, to read, to want to be smart. You know what I mean? Because I always was somebody that believed that, you know, you had to have facts. You know, you had to have information. You couldn't come to the table and build or talk if you didn't know what you were talking about. If you didn't read a book, or if you didn't, you know, if you didn't kind of build on your craft. You know what I mean? As it relates to just being informed about certain things. And so I would always do that. So from a young age, I would always read and want to learn and want to study and grow and evolve so that I can bring something to the table to impress these elders in my family. You know what I mean? Because I guess I was looking for attention. I was looking for love in a certain way, but I always wanted to impress them. So I always had my head in a book reading something so that when the opportunity came, I could hop into a conversation and add something, you know, add on to the cipher and bring something, you know, positive and bring something that was dope, especially for somebody my age at the time. So just on the path of me doing that, I got with some brothers, some older brothers, and they kind of, you know, they gave me knowledge of self around like 12, 13 years old. So I started to learn about who I was, you know what I mean, who black people were, where we came from, you know what I mean, our contribution to the culture, to all aspects of the culture, you know, you know, to politics, to mathematics, to spirituality, whatever. I started to learn these things. And so I would bring them well, I knew I couldn't really bring it all the way out to my family because they weren't having it. You know, my family was strict, religious folks. They were Christians, still are. And you know, they were just hardcore, very conservative in their approach, in their logic. And so I couldn't really bring it to them directly, but I would always kind of, you know, season a couple conversations here and there, and throw in some knowledge and self information to them, just to kind of see how they would take it. And they didn't really take it the way that I, you know, assumed that they would, you know, and rightfully so. I don't even know why I assumed that they would take it the way I thought that they would take it. But, you know, and they would give me this information back, you know, what this is what we believe, or this is true, or this is what history is, or, You know, we didn't do this, they did that. And so I absorbed that. I took that in, you know what I mean? Which is what a lot of us do, because we're, you know, these are the people who raise us. They feed us, they put clothes on our back. You know what I mean? They make sure we have, you know, a warm bed to sleep in at night. So you take in this information. So when I started getting this information about knowledge itself and about who the black man is, who the true and living is, and spirituality and all these different things, you know what I mean? I said, I tried to prove them wrong. Basically, I said, look, you know, y'all bugging, y'all on some, you know, hotep stuff or whatever. I'm not really trying to get with that, and I'm gonna prove to y'all that y'all are wrong. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go do some research, and I'm gonna bring it back, because they will have these conversations and they would say, you know, well, why do you believe what you believe, or who told you that, or you know, or whatever. So I would always, so in order to debate them, I would do research on my own. You know what I mean? To try to come back to them, to come back on the block or the street and challenge these brothers. You know what I mean? And so the more I read, the more books that I read, the more information that I took in, I realized that a lot of the things that I was raised to believe, a lot of the things that I held true were wrong. They were false. And at first I got very upset. You know what I mean? I felt like, you know, I had been lied to. And I felt like, I can't imagine how somebody would feel if they lived their whole life thinking that somebody was their father, or they lived their whole life thinking that somebody was their mother, and they found out in their 20s and 30s, whatever, that the person that they thought was their father really wasn't their father. I have no idea how that feels, even though I know people who live with that reality. But however, I felt something close to that. You know what I mean? Or at least I thought I did. Because I thought that, you know, I felt like I was lied to. You know what I mean? And everything that I thought was real, my whole foundation crumbled right in front of me. And so it made me question everything. It made me question everybody. You know what I mean? I was upset. I thought that, you know, my mother or my uncles or my friends or people that I grew up with, they lied to me on purpose. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, I didn't know. But I just kept doing research. I kept reading, and it just brought me to this heightened level of consciousness about who I am and who we are as a people, and about, you know, what's right and exact in this world. And it made me upset, you know what I mean, at first. Then it made me sad, because I realized that a lot of people out here are living a lie. You know what I mean? A lot of people out here are really living a lie, and they don't know it. You know what I mean? I remember the first time, you know, one of my favorite movies or trilogies or whatever is The Matrix. And it meant something different to me, you know, when I put my life and my ascension to, you know, heightened levels of consciousness and wisdom. It changed the perspective for me, because I saw myself in it. And I realized that, you know, there are a lot of people in this world who are programmed to live a certain way. You know what I mean? You have I'm of the understanding and of the belief that there are 4 levels of existence in this world. You know, there are 4 degrees, there are 4 laws, there are 4 levels of understanding in this world. You know, the most primal one, the most basic one is the physical. You know what I mean? Then you ascend to the emotional. Then the next level would be the mental or the philosophical, and then the highest one would be the spiritual. You know what I mean? And so a lot of people, you have a lot of grown people, a lot of adults who are just on their physical realm. You know what I mean? Everything is just about what they need physically at that time. They have no discipline, no level of understanding outside of what they need at that moment. And you see it happen, especially in our community. You know what I mean? We have people in our community who do things physically, and they don't even know why they do it. Like, there are a lot of women out here, a lot of black women out here who are laying in the bed with somebody. They don't even know why they're there. You know what I mean? They don't even know why they're having sex with this person. There are men out here, there are brothers out here who are making babies with women. They don't even know why they're doing it. It's just something to do. There's no purpose behind it. There's no level of emotion or a mental aspect to it, or even a spiritual aspect to it. It's just physical. It's just, I wanted I desire it. It's here. It's available. It's presented itself to me. So I'm going to indulge in it. And that's the basic. That's the most basic level of existence. That's the existence of a child. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't want to remember. I'm gonna let my sister add on again, but you know that's what happened to me, and it really changed my life. And I saw things differently. I started moving differently, and I learned that to have a conscious level of existence, like you talked about, like you alluded to, means that you know you're going to be upset a lot of the time, and you're going to have a lonely life because you can't really build with people. You know what I mean? There are people who are your family, who are your flesh and blood. In some situations, there are people that are even married to somebody that they really can't talk to about their level of consciousness because it'll rock the boat. And I know so many people who are like, yo, Frank, we have conversations and they're like, look, man, you making sense. And I had the same conversations with other people, like, yo, you making sense, but it's almost like I don't want to compare it to, to the alphabet mob, but it's like there are a lot of people who are living double lives. There are a lot of people who are afraid to come out, who are afraid to say, I don't think like everybody. I don't believe in what the standard understanding of religion is. I don't believe that. And there are a lot of people who know that, but they're afraid to come out because for a lot of folks, their entire life is built around, this orthodox version of religion that they were taught and raised in. You know what I mean? Their friends are in it, their colleagues are in it, you know what I mean? Their fraternity brothers are in it, their sorority sisters are in it. And so they can't really detach, you know what I mean, at all because they're afraid of how much it'll rock their whole life. It'll just rock their whole existence. You know what I'm saying? So you have people who live a certain way, but then they come on Facebook and they meet people on Facebook and they build with other people and it's like, okay, now I'm comfortable. You know what I mean? I'm more comfortable with a phantom Facebook account with an avatar where nobody knows who I really am. You know what I mean? But I can have real conversations about spirituality. I can have real conversations about history and don't feel like, I'm an outcast or I'm excluded. So yeah, I feel you. So let me ask you this too. How has it affected? Because I talked to a few people when when I had the idea to do this live. And I asked them the same question I'm about to ask you. But how did, you being, conscious or woke or whatever people call it, how has that affected your relationship life? How has that affected your ability to love someone in a relationship and to allow them to love you? Have you had any issues with that?
No, I haven't had issues. I'll say the most, the biggest issue is, they always say the other person is your mirror. And from with my experience, whenever I was with someone, I could never really maintain anything because I wasn't even operating in my true self. Right. And as I explained in the book, when I met someone and he pretty much presented me with what I needed to face, but I was still unconscious. I couldn't understand what he was trying to say. Right. And I pretty much, spent most of my time, alone because you really can't have a relationship until you put yourself together when you're your true authentic self. That's if you want a healthy relationship. I know people who are in relationships, but they're, dysfunctional, but I was never the kind of person who could deal with dysfunction and chaos. So pretty much my life was spent, in solitude. Well, no, isolation, I guess I could put it that way. But yeah, I've never been the kind of person who I've always known that I wasn't for everybody. So, because when you start to really become yourself, you attract more of your tribe. Mm-hmm. So as far as a relationship goes, I've never really had an issue with coming together with someone and sharing, those parts of myself.
Yeah. I the folks that I talked to about it, one particular young lady, she just alluded to the fact that, it was hard for her to kind of build with a guy who understood where she was coming from. You know what I mean? She was into, some different things. She was more so into African spirituality, and, she had a sage game up, and, she's doing her thing. And she found that it was very difficult for her to date because, there were a lot of guys who didn't really understand it. And they alluded to understanding it. And I think a lot of guys too, and a lot of females too, like when we like somebody, a lot of times, when we're chasing them as opposed to pursuing them, like I talked about in a post I put up earlier, we will say things that we think, she wants to hear. So she has a heightened level of understanding about certain things, and we're not on that level. You're just not on that plane yet. A lot of guys who are chasing as opposed to pursuing will lie to this woman and say, you know what, well, yeah, I get that. Well, yeah, I understand. Or they'll make her believe or give her, this notion that they get it, so to speak. And they really don't. You know what I mean? They don't understand it, or they have certain perceptions about it. You know what I mean? About people who are just different, who have a different level or different understanding of consciousness. You know what I mean? From what they would talk about was that, well, a lot of guys just think that spiritual women or women who practice African spirituality, things like that, they just believe we're just promiscuous and we're just wild, and we do whatever, and we don't say no to nothing sexually or whatever, and and they just had issues with trying to detach themselves from that stigma, from men who try to approach them, but for me, I just had for a long time, I had this mindset that I was going to go wherever truth took me. You know what I mean? I was going to go wherever truth took me. It didn't matter, if it was somewhere that wasn't comfortable for me. It didn't matter if it was somewhere that no one else would go with me. I was going to go wherever knowledge took me. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of people who aren't willing to do it. Like I said, there are people out here who really know the truth about certain things. You know what I mean? There are certain people who know the truth about where the Abrahamic religions come from. You know what I mean? The origin of these religions. There are people who know the history about a lot of things that we attribute to European culture, whether it be Roman or Greek. There are people out here who know the true genesis of where these things come from. You know what I mean? Like, and just to bust your bubble, if you don't know, it is African, it is Kemetic, it is Nubian. You know what I mean? It just is. You know what I mean? And there are people who, for whatever reason, are just afraid, to accept that. And I'm not saying that because I'm not sitting here telling anybody, like, I'm not an atheist or nothing. I do subscribe to a lot of the tenets, that other people subscribe to, but I subscribe to them in a different way. You know what I mean? Historically, like, let's just break it down from a religious aspect for a second. The original Christians, allegedly, were more Gnostics. They were more agnostic than anything. They were people who believed that these revealed scriptures were allegorical or metaphorical. You know what I mean? That they were more speculative than anything. So they believed that true enlightenment or true, growth and development came from within. You know what I mean? That you didn't have to go to a place, or you didn't have to give people money. You didn't have to do certain things in order to receive some level of enlightenment. You know what I mean? Everything that you needed was within yourself.
I agree with that.
I mean, it took you focusing on yourself, meditating and learning yourself and doing soul work or whatever in order for you to grow and develop. You know what I mean? But then historically things came about where people understood that this thing could be used as a tool, that we could use it to, to benefit ourselves monetarily. And so they took it and they added things to it and they took away from it. And They had councils, you know what I mean? You guys can look this stuff up, like, you know, the Nicene Council in 325 AD, and there were a few councils where a lot of things that we believe were spiritually influenced were not. They were influenced by a group of men in a room who said, we're going to come up with this. This is what we want the people to believe. These are the books that we want to be put into what we know today as the Bible. You know what I mean? There were men who said, okay, we're going to come up with this. We're going to come up with this type of belief. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, you have to understand that what we hold true is just a belief. That's what it is. You know what I mean? And what is a belief? A belief is just something that we hold to be true that we can't necessarily prove. And it doesn't necessarily have to be religious. It could be a lot of things. You know what I mean? Sometimes take it up here. And come here. Come on. So this way. I'm sorry, y'all. My daughter's been begging to be on one of these shows. So I'm gonna let her come say hi.
Hi.
All right. Good.
Yes. That stuff is from Girl Scouts.
Okay, now I'll get it.
Okay.
Now put you gotta go to sleep because it's late. Night night. I love you.
I was gonna ask her to say something in
Oh yeah, come here, Summer, real quick. People want you to say some stuff in French. Come here. Just,
Okay.
come here. Don't be shy.
Anything?
Yeah, anything.
Bonjour. And
Why you been so shy?
I'm not being shy.
Now, real quick, because Daddy rolling. I'm rolling a little bit. But say like I love mommy or anything. Stuff you would say in class.
Mama.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna get my French up. I know a little something too. Les papa, right? Les papa says it's les bedtime.
It's saying in the English so everyone can understand you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna check on you a little bit, okay? All right. Good night. But yeah, so a lot of these things that we hold true, we believe are are spiritually based or motivated or inspired are really not. You know what I mean? And that's not just with with the religions that we believe in, but other groups of people too. You know what I mean? There are a lot of things that, historically, there are a lot of things that we see every day that we don't know. And so I didn't know. You know what I mean? I didn't know that it was a black man who basically built this thing. You know what I mean? Benjamin. I didn't know this stuff. You know what I mean? I only knew what I was taught. And I believed it because the people who taught it to me, I loved it. And I just ran. And the more I read, and the more I grew and developed, I understood that a lot of things just were not true, or they were presented to me in a way that wasn't righteous. And so it turned me into a completely different. You know what I mean? But I think for me, I've been blessed, because I'm in a relationship. As I grow in truth, as I grow in my level of knowledge and understanding about things, you know what I mean? I have somebody with me that's like, okay, I'm going with you. You know what I mean? Wherever this knowledge takes us, wherever this heightened level of consciousness takes us, I'm willing to go there with you because I trust you. You know what I mean? So I'm very thankful for that. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people out here in this world don't have that, and they have to live a lie. And that's sweetheart. And it's just, it's like that. But I just want people to understand that, being conscious and having a certain degree of wisdom, it is tough. You know what I mean? Because you can't walk if some of the greatest minds that we've ever seen, you know what I mean, in our community, they had lonely lives. They had people who were willing to sabotage them, who were willing to take their life because of what they knew. Because what you know it manifests itself in what you do. And so because they had a heightened level of consciousness about certain things, they became a threat to certain people. And then they were sabotaged. They were infiltrated. Their organizations were infiltrated. You know what I mean? And a lot of them lost their lives behind it. And so it is tough. You know what I mean? A lot of times I feel like, you know, why can't I just be like everybody else who just live life every day with no cares, no worries? You know what I mean? I don't understand it. Like my level of consciousness, and when I say this and when I talk to, and when I bring Shantina into it, I'm not saying it in the sense that I'm better than anybody, because I'm not. Anybody who has any level of intelligence knows that they don't know everything. You know what I mean? That there are always going to be levels and degrees to life that you're always aspiring to reach, and that you're never going to get to, because you're going to run out of time. We're all going to expire at a certain point. So you're never going to get to the finish line. There is no finish line, you know what I mean, as it relates to degrees and information and knowledge and things like that. There's no finish line to that. So you're always going to be in a constant and consistent state of movement, state of growth, you know, evolution, so to speak. But once you get certain levels of information, man, once you reach that certain level of consciousness, you can't walk it back. The things that happened to my sister, the things that happened to Shantina, the things that, you know, Chantel have experienced in their lives, you can't walk that back. You can't just wake up tomorrow and say, I'm gonna forget all those visions that I saw, everything that happened to me, or you know, everything certain people told me. You know what I mean? You know, when I sat down with the EFI and the EFI told me this, or I read this book, or I started studying Dr. Phil Valentine, or whatever I was doing, I can't walk that back now. You know what I mean? I can't wake up tomorrow and say I forgot everything I just learned. You know what I mean? You can't do that. And so it just, sometimes I wish I could, because it would be a lot easier. You know what I mean? I would like to think that I have a certain level of comfort in life where, you know, I have a great family. I make good money. I've been afforded a certain level of luxury that I'm comfortable with. And I still worry about things. And I see people out here in this world who don't have any money, who don't really have any type of foundation to stand on, and they have all the care in the world. You know what I mean? Like they don't, matter of fact, I see you, Sasha. Matter of fact, I'm gonna let Shantina answer this. Shantina, what do you think? Do you believe that your beliefs shape your reality?
Yes, your beliefs shape your reality. Absolutely.
They do. You know what I mean? What you see from people, what you see, the physical is just manifestation of the mental, of the emotional, of the spiritual. You know what I mean? That's all it is. So when you see somebody acting out, when you're in a relationship with someone and there's a lot of toxicity there, there's a lot of trauma there, and you see it visually, you see it in the arguing, in the fighting, in the ghosting, in all of these different, you know, ways of or levels of expression. All of that is just a physical manifestation of what's going on inside. So what you believe on the inside does shape your reality. You know what I mean? I look at things completely different, you know, based on what I believe, as opposed to, you know, how I used to think, based on what I used to believe. It does change you. It changes everything about you. It changes who you hang around. It changes the type of person that you are willing to date. You know what I mean? It changes, you know, what you allow into your space. It changes what, you know, even when you watch TV, like I already know that, and I know Shantina can build on this too, but we watch TV different. You know what I mean? Like if we watch it, for people who still watch TV, who think a certain way, who you know, who have a certain level of consciousness to them, we watch TV completely different. You know what I mean? Like I see things different. Like my mentality is black first. You know what I mean? So when I watch TV, I watch it from a black first mindset. I don't care what show it is. I'm always looking at how are the black people portrayed in the show? What is the message and the theme for black people in this show? You know what I mean? on a spiritual level, on a metaphysical level, I look at stuff like that. What's the hidden meaning? What are they really trying to say? You know what I mean? You ask why questions all the time. Why is it like this? Why is mumble rap so popular? You know what I mean? Why would somebody like Cardi B win Woman of the Year? You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes you ask yourself these things. Like, why is this stuff happening? Why are certain people put out in the front? You know what I mean? What are they trying to get us to think? What are they trying to get us to believe? You know, how are they trying to get us to live our life? You know what I mean? But like I said, I just see people all the time, like, who don't have a care. And look, I'm gonna plain it. When I became a father, right? Y'all just saw my daughter Summer. She's my firstborn. It's my baby. It's my princess. 9 years old. Now, when we had Summer, right? We did it the right way. You know what I mean? We got married. You know, we bought a house. You know, we rented that house out. Built this house that I'm in right now. Started popping out kids. Even with doing things the right way, even with having a wife on deck that, you know, we understood one another, there was a certain level of respect, you know, submission and cooperation that we had amongst ourselves, I was still scared to death. You know what I mean? I was still nervous because I was going to be a father. I was going to be responsible for somebody. Now, at this point, I'm making great money. Like I said, I have a wife. She's in pocket. We understand one another. We're on the same page. You know, everything is rolling. You know what I mean? And I was still scared to death because I was going to be a father. And somebody was going to look up to me. And it was going to be up to me whether this baby had food to eat or a bed to sleep in or an environment that was filled with love. You know what I mean? That was my responsibility as a father and as a husband. And that was scary because I ain't never been put in a situation like that before. But I see people out here all the time, 4, 5, 6 kids, no dude, no husband around, 3, 4, 5 baby moms, no wife around, and they comfortable. You know what I mean? No worries, no cares in the world. Nothing. Like, wake up just as refreshed, you know what I'm saying? No worries, no cares in the world. And I'm sitting here, did everything right, have a stable foundation around these seeds, around these babies. And I was scared to death. Because I understood that all the responsibility was going to be on me. I placed it upon myself. I put it on myself to say that I'm responsible for this woman and these kids. If they don't have what they need, if they're lacking, whatever it is, physical, spiritual, emotional, whatever it is, if they're lacking something, I put the onus on myself. It's my responsibility to make sure they have it. Or that we know, or that they know how to get it, or we know how to get it together as a family. You know what I'm saying? That's what a certain level of consciousness does for you, especially for a guy. You know what I mean? You start to live like that. You understand that, you know what I mean, you have to live outside of yourself. And it's not about you. You know what I mean? But it's hard. And I know I'm gonna let my sister build, but it's hard because you see these things. You see I know my sister struggles with it. I'm gonna let her talk about it. But, you know, seeing these things going on and seeing that so many people around you are just doing things that don't benefit them. They're doing things that are directly causing harm to them. And no matter what you do or what you say, no matter how they just don't see it. They don't want to see it. They don't care to see it. Have you experienced stuff like that, Sejji?
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. And it's something you said, MB asked a question after this one, but you said that people are, you know, they're going through life because it doesn't benefit them, when actually it does benefit them, because that's the only way they can keep going in the dysfunction. And that's what I had to realize, is that people are living this way and they're continuing these dysfunctional generational patterns because it does benefit them. The problem that I have with that is they don't want the comfort and the stability that other people have. They feel entitled to that in their chaos and their dysfunction. That's the issue that I have with that. And I also want to touch on the fact that the people at the bottom, they're allowed to be there because they are the supply or the workhorses for the people on the top. That's the duality. You have your your slave class, your underclass versus your upper class, because this is why they have socially engineered the lower class into that madness, because they're the power source to keep the people on top going. So they do in a way benefit from being dysfunctional. They don't have to wake up because they're comfortable in their chaos, if that makes sense.
Right.
The only thing I struggled with was that a standard was set for me, and I have to sit around and watch everybody else pretty much do and get away with what I was told not to do. That's something that I probably never understand. I will say, and I'm hoping this isn't off topic, but probably some colorism played a part in it, and that's another level of consciousness that I had to confront myself with, was really coming to the conclusion that my family operated in colorism. They have this superior way of thinking that their skin color is going to carry them through life, because they never developed their character. And that's something I had to do on my journey, becoming conscious, because I think we think consciousness is being spiritual or following African spirituality. Really, it's just about being honest with yourself and ridding yourself of anything that does not serve you.
Right.
And that's really what because like MB, she asked the question of what books can she read to find consciousness. You can't necessarily find it in a book because it's limited. Because when you're finding who you are, you can't find yourself in a book. You may find certain things that may explain certain things on a psychological level, but finding who you are and really waking up and realizing that you were groomed or socially engineered into being something that you're not. That's what being conscious means. It's coming into your authentic self. It's acknowledging that you're not all good. You do have some traits about you that some people would label as bad. Like, I'm very direct and people label that as bad and rude. Right. But, that's just who I am. Accept that. So, but another thing you said, this journey or this walk is lonely. I guess I don't find it to be lonely because I'm kind of a loner, the loner wolf anyway. And I've pretty much always been that way. I've always been labeled as the weirdo, the weird kid, or the outcast. So that part never really bothered me. But once you rid yourself of the fear of being like how you said, people are just going through life and they're repeating these patterns generationally, a lot of that is rooted in fear. Right. And that was really my biggest struggle, was ridding myself of fear, because it was used as a tactic to keep me in control, to keep me from waking up, really. And once I began to shed those layers of fear, because that was really a big thing. Once I did that, the doors just opened, because I was suffering because I was just afraid of doing anything. And that was really me, waking up out of that sleep or that spiritual coma. And for me, that's what being conscious is. And it's funny because I was downstairs in the movie War with the Planet of the Apes was on, with the scene, You know, as you said, when you watch movies, you watch it from a different perspective. And the scene where the colonel was talking to Caesar and he was explaining how, you know, the humans were infected with the simian flu, and it he had to sacrifice his son because had that virus spread to every human, it was stripping them of their humanity. And he didn't want that, because if they lost their humanity, they would be reduced to animals. But if you think about it, that's what we're seeing now. People are living from their lower self. They're just getting together, screwing, making babies, no purpose. Living like animals. But that was done by design. It was to strip people of their humanity. So when you're waking up, when you're becoming conscious, you're becoming aware of your humanity, that you are a higher to be a useless eater. So yeah, that realizing that was a big game changer for me.
Right. Yeah. I see MB in the chat as well, and Santina is right. She's right and exact. You know what I mean? Consciousness, however you define it, is really based on you just learning yourself and being comfortable in your own skin. You know what I mean? Truly. You know what I mean? And a lot of us, because a lot of us aren't, you know, we live lives that we think other people want us to live. We live lives that, you know, without, I mean, there's no thought or no thinking involved, but we live lives that other people want us to live. You know, you're supposed to do this or you're supposed to be doing that based on other people's perceptions of who you are. And you know, only one who knows who you really are is you. You know what I mean? So consciousness, like Shantina said, is just about finding you. And you're not going to always be able to do that in a book. It's going to be very rare. Like she said, you could find pieces of yourself in a book, but you really have to do your own individual soul work and ask yourself, you know, the real questions and dig deep. You know what I mean? The good thing about it is, you know, is you. You know what I mean? You know, there's no one else involved, so you don't have to worry about anybody judging you or trying to sabotage you and things like that. All the work is within. You know what I mean? Like I talked about earlier with, you know, with the original, you know, people who were Christians allegedly, they were more agnostic. You know, they believe that enlightenment comes from within. It doesn't even necessarily come from a book or a place or a building or a Facebook group or whatever. It comes from right here, and your willingness and your ability to look within yourself. That's why I put a post up the other day, and I was saying, you know, jot, write, journal. You know what I mean? Like write stuff down. You know, ask yourself questions. You know, real questions. You know, why do I do this? You know, what's really the origin of why I do some of the things that I do? Where does it come from? You know what I mean? Like it happens so much, I might not even know why. Dig deep. You know, it's going to help you. It's going to help you going forward. And I know you talk about being afraid, you know, being fearful. I'm fearful. You know what I mean? I'm not too, you know, too much of a man to lie to y'all. You know what I mean? I've been fearful about a lot of things. You know what I mean? One of the reasons why it took me so long to, you know, really start this channel um, was because I had a certain level of fear that like I didn't, you know, what if people don't listen? You know what I mean? What if I'm doing this and I'm pouring my heart and soul into it and there's two people in the chat or there's nobody in the chat? You know what I mean? So there's a certain level of fear with that. You know what I mean? Will the people accept it? But then I had to learn and understand that the content really, you know, people learn from it and people like it and they contribute and they, you know, show you love and support and all of that. But the content is really about you. You know what I mean? Like the greatest storytellers, the greatest people who come before you are people who are comfortable enough to talk about things that affect them and talk about it in an honest, authentic way. So I can sit here before y'all and say that, look, I was afraid. You know what I mean? I was afraid of starting the channel. You know what I mean? What if my topics weren't right? What if people didn't like it? You know what I mean? You look around and you see certain people who like their channels are a lot of fluff, or their channels are a lot of niggatry to it, and they have thousands of people in there. Shout out to them, you know what I mean? But I can't do that. You know what I mean? That's not authentic to me. One of my brothers, who's another content creator, like we were talking, and he said, Frank, your growth is going to be, you're going to grow steady though. You know what I'm saying? Because your content is very rich and it's authentic, and it's not something that is, it's not hood, so to speak. It's not something that's catchy. It's not something that's going to make everybody run to it just to see some niggatry popping off. You know what I'm saying? But they say, yo, because of the things that you talk about, it's going to be good. It's going to grow. And then I had to learn and understand that it's really not about the people. It's about me. As long as I'm being true to myself, and as long as I'm giving y'all Frank and my experiences, and I'm being honest about it and transparent, it's going to grow. It can't help but grow. And even if it doesn't, so be it. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of fear, going into certain things as it relates to, coming before y'all and being a content creator. I know Shantina has her channel as well, and she puts out stuff. You know what I mean? I listen to it all the time, and and it's true to her. She's not going to be anything that, that's not true to herself. And because she's being true to herself, whatever attention comes her way or my way or whoever's way, it's gonna have staying power because it's real. You know what I mean? And that manifests itself, and like Sasha talked about, the internal or the emotional manifests itself in the physical. So if you're not living out what you spit now, it's gonna manifest itself in other areas of your life. You know what I mean? Not just in, your content or people around you. They're going to know you're a fraud. They're going to be able to tell it. You know what I mean? Even if they don't really know all of the intricate things about you, they're going to know that something's not right. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just about, consciousness is about believing in yourself. It's about, learning yourself and being confident in who you are as a person. You know what I mean? Bottom line. And I found
myself. And it takes work.
Right, because you got. I mean, now you got it. I'll go. I'll kind of go into that a little bit.
I say it takes work because I see on social media people are addicted to memes, and I've left tons of these female Facebook groups that are dedicated to reclaiming yourself and self-love. But the group is just people sharing memes, that nobody's doing the work. It's just meme sharing. And I found it to be, my energy was being drained because, for work that I've done on myself, it took a lot of work. And I think people think doing the work means, saying the right things, or, just maybe reading a Facebook post, but it's doing research on yourself. It's asking yourself, who am I? What's my purpose? Or why am I here? And I'll say doing the work for me was really discovering, I touched on it before, but it was my ancestry. I had to go and find out who my father was. And the reality is, what I found myself through my father, because everything that he was, that's who I am. I mean, even, his cousin, when I write things on Facebook, he says to me, he says, I swear, if I didn't know better, when I read your post, it's like your father is still here, because you write exactly like your father. And so, that's what I think. We overthink everything so much that we think doing the work is something extravagant, but it's really not. It's just knowing these two people who've come together to make who you are. But we're so backwards and dysfunctional that we've left out the masculine principle, and this is why everybody's imbalanced. This is why people are having to find who they are. They want to replace it with other things. This is why the world is so crazy and upside down. But it's really simple. The Most High gave us the basic blueprint, and we turned around and we want to do it our way. Now we're imbalanced, so everybody has to find who they are. But we think we can do it through books, but it's simple. But if you came into the world and you were brought into the world, quote unquote, the right way or the traditional way, it's going to be harder for you. But you really have to be dedicated, and you have to put in the work to get yourself back on track. But as I said, for me, it was discovering but because we don't have family, we think we have to do all of these other things. We're trying to find ourselves through religion and through the school system, because that's who raised me, the school system. This is why you see on Facebook these parents talking about, well, the school need to teach this. No, you need to teach your children about taxes. You need to teach your children about financial illiteracy. You need to teach your children about emotional intelligence. That is not the school's job. So when I say do the work, that's what all that entails, of doing the work, not just sitting around, hoping for the best, or even looking for yourself in a partner, because you have to fix yourself first before you can actually, find that, I don't want to say the other half, but you will attract that person once you, begin to do the work. But too many of us are trying to go around it. And it's probably, like I said, because we're overthinking the process, but it's really simple because so many of us don't have that proper foundation. Because I like when you posted about family the other day, and I really wish people understood how important it is to, have family, because that's a part of consciousness. That's why so many of us aren't conscious, because we don't come from, we don't have stable families. That's the root of all of this madness. Lack of family, lack of community.
Right. Yeah. I think in the very beginning, like the story that I told about, kind of wanting to jump in these conversations in my family gatherings, a lot of that was because it did go back to family. I didn't have a father, so I wanted to impress somebody. I wanted to impress, men.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a father to impress. You know what I mean? So, like you said, it starts.
How old were you?
Huh?
How old were you when you were doing that? Like talking to your family?
Like probably I started probably around 8, 9, 10 years old. We would always have family gatherings for the holidays, and I would just kind of listen to them build, talk about stuff. I always wanted to impress them, let them know I was there. A lot of times in my life, in my younger life, I didn't really feel people knew I was, you know what I mean? So I would do something or say something to impress them. You know what I mean? Is that my sound doing that? Hold on, y'all. Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. But yeah, so I was looking to impress somebody because I didn't have my father there to impress. You know what I mean? And so it started young, and then it just kind of kept, snowballing over the course of my life. You know what I mean? I was like the class clown in school. I was always joking, you know what I'm saying, all the time, having fun, because I wanted to be noticed. I wanted the people to say, hey, that's him, or that's Frank. You know what I mean? Because when I was young, I didn't really feel like that. I just felt like I was another guy in the room, and I wanted to be something different than that. I wanted to be something bigger than that. You know what I mean? I wanted somebody to say, hey, like I get him. That's the dude. That's the, you know, that's the homie. Because, you know, that's why, you know, like Shantina said, we really have to focus on family, man, because a lot of the things that we deal with, a lot of our struggles and a lot of the things that we spend a lifetime trying to fix comes from our family structure or lack thereof. You know what I mean? So many women are looking for, you know, a masculine energy, and they don't know what it is for real because there was no father there. So when they see these images or perceptions of men and they see people gawking over it, they think that's what a man is supposed to be. And then men and young boys too, we get caught up in that mess. So we see how women act, you know, when 50 Cent would come on, or we see how, you know, women would act when, you know, DMX was doing whatever, or whoever it was. We saw how women will respond to that. So we're like, okay, because we don't really have a lot of game, because we don't have a lot of positive, you know, strong masculine energy around us to kind of give us that real game, we think that this is real. So we come at women like that because we think it's cool. A lot of these cats, you know, who are on social media now who talk about women reckless, they do that because they think that that's what women like. They look at the futures of the world and say, okay, regardless of how reckless he talks, you know, the man got 11 baby mothers out here. So there are women out here who like that. So if he's getting that kind of attention and he has women gawking all over him, then that's what a man is. And that's what I'm supposed to be, even if it's not true to myself. You know what I mean? And what these brothers don't really understand is, and you know, what you get when you get to a heightened level of consciousness is that you learn that even the people that you see who move like that, that's not really who they are either. You know what I'm saying? That's an image that somebody else created for them to sell records or for them to sell movies or for them to sell clothes. That's not really who they are. You know what I'm saying? Future is probably the most calm, educated, laid back brother you'll ever meet in your life. But he, you know, I mean, he stay in like it's a storm outside. He ain't pulling out of nothing. But outside of that, he probably a good, highly intelligent brother. You know, but the world that he's put himself in says, hey, you got to act like this. You know what I mean? In order for you to sell records. And that goes back to the consciousness that we talked about. A lot of us make deals, you know, outside of who we are authentically to say, hey, I have to act like this in order to move and shape. I have to act like this in order to get certain levels of opportunities. I have to act like this to get a bag. You know what I mean? I have to be somebody that I'm not in order to, you know, get a whole bunch of subscribers on my channel. You know what I mean? I see dudes who talk about black women reckless all day. They got 15,000 subs. So maybe that's what I should be doing. No. You know, nah. You know what I'm saying? So, but when you have a heightened level of consciousness, when you know yourself, you know what I mean, and you know that, and you understand that, and you realize that you don't really have to move like that. You could be true to yourself. You could be authentic, and whatever whatever it is that you're supposed to get, it's going to come to you. And when it comes to you, it's not necessarily going to leave you because you were authentic. You know what I mean? I could go out here and run reckless, get all kind of subs talking reckless, but that's not who I am. They're not going to stay. They're going to go to somebody else who does it a little bit better than me. Nobody can be better at being frank than Frank. That's what consciousness is. That's what consciousness is. That's what it's all about. Nobody can be Frank better than Frank. Nobody can be Shantina better than Shantina. So the onus is on us to be ourselves, to be authentic, because nobody can bring to the world what we can bring. It's just, it is what it is. Shantina, did you want to, I see you, Chris, I see y'all, man. I see my man G, Ultimate Black Man Radio, pull up on me. My man Chris, as always. Chocolate coated, I see y'all. But yeah, I'm not gonna hold y'all that much longer, man. I know I'm gonna respect Shantina's time, man. You know, I don't want to hop into too much of your wing time. I know you like wings. I mean, I don't want to disrupt that flow and nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah.
Yeah, but Wayne.
Yeah. Did anybody in the chat have any questions, any comments, anything like that for me, Shantina? If not, you know what I mean, I'm gonna let my sister say a few parting shots, and then we're gonna fall back to next week. All right. If anybody says anything, I'll put it.
I don't have it.
You got it, Shantina. Were you saying something?
Oh, I thought you were asking me for.
Oh, nah. So, all right. So I'm gonna let my sister give some parting shots. You know, she does have a channel. She's over at the House of L. I'm over there a lot. You know what I mean? When she does, you know, when she's not eating wings, and she's putting out content, I'm over there listening to it. You know what I mean? Liking it, all of that good stuff. So, but I'm gonna let my sister give her parting shots. Talk about anything that you have coming up. You know, promote anything that you have going on, and then we'll move on. Then we'll go from there.
As of right now, I have not really anything going. I'm still trying to you know, promote my first book. I just finished the second one, but I don't think I'll be publishing that anytime soon. Because I want to take care of the first one. But yeah, I'm just continuing to, you know, do the work on myself. I'm still learning. Every day is something new. As you can, you know, you follow my posts on Facebook, so you always see me writing and,
Right.
you know, using my third eye and just discovering new things about myself and coming to just coming into myself more. So, you know, I'm learning that this life is not. I've learned to stop focusing on the destination. I've learned to just enjoy the journey and to, you know, pick up things and learn more as I go along. So I think that's one of my biggest lessons, to stop being attached to an outcome and just enjoy the journey and be a life learner. So yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. Yeah. So, I'm like I said. Well, first I want to thank my sister for coming on, man. You know, Shantina is one of my favorite people. You know what I mean? She's been through a lot. Um, I believe in her. I have a lot of love and respect for her. You know, my wife does as well. And I already told her she's family. You know what I mean? She could come over here, go in the refrigerator without asking. You know what I mean? Like that's how I feel about her. And I want to thank you for coming on and blessing us and the people. I'm going to put, like I said, I'm going to put the link to her book in the description for this show. Right after the show ends, I'm going to go on and get the link and post it in the description box. So if you do not have her book, I know I have her book. My wife and I read it. You know, we enjoy it. We enjoyed it. I know there's some other people. I think Chantel has the book as well. You know what I mean? It's great, man. So I'm gonna put that link up there. Y'all check it out, man. You know what I mean? It is worth the price. You're gonna learn a lot, man. You're gonna learn a lot about my sister. You're gonna learn a lot about yourself. You know what I mean? You can, you know, I constantly, you know, when I read it, when my wife and I were reading it, I saw myself in a lot of the book. You know what I mean? And different, you know, and it may not have been through Shantina's eyes. It could have been in the eyes of somebody that she was with at the time, or a family member, whatever. But I saw myself all in the book, in different places, in different spaces. So it's a very good book. I enjoyed it. I enjoy it. I'm gonna put that up. So I got y'all know how I do it, man. Every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I rock out. I'm gonna start getting on cam more, you know what I mean, overcoming my fears, like my man Boog talk about, you know, MB. I'm talking about as well, you know, not being fearful. So I'm gonna step out here, man. I'm gonna cam up a lot, you know what I mean, going forward. But I have two shows I want to do for this month, for the next 2 weeks. I'm not sure which one I want to do first. So at first I was going to do a show next week about your lane, about the value of knowing what your lane is and staying in it. But then, you know, I came up with a post today, and I kind of really thought it was dope. So I may do that next week too. So I'm gonna let the people decide. I can either do next week, I can do the live about understanding your lane and the value of staying in it, or I can do a live about trying to teach brothers the difference between chasing a female and pursuing a female. You know what I mean? Because a lot of brothers don't really know the difference between the two, and there's a lot of science behind it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of energy behind both of them. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna let y'all decide. You know what I mean? You know what y'all think I should do next week. You know what I mean? Understanding your lane and the value of knowing your lane and staying in your lane, and or you know, the difference between pursuing a woman and chasing a woman. You know what I mean? And just building on that. So I'm gonna let the people decide. You know, y'all let me know what y'all think. If this show ends, which it probably will before, you know what I mean, before y'all figure it out, then y'all can email me. A lot of y'all are my friends on Facebook, Instagram. Y'all can kind of message me, say, hey, Frank, I think you should do this show next. Well, I'll probably put a poll up too on Instagram and Facebook just to see what people think. And then, you know, by the end of the week, I'll know what I want to do, and then I'll rock out, be ready to go for next Tuesday. But whatever one I don't do next Tuesday, I'll do it because we got one more Tuesday. And then the Tuesday after that, my wife and I were flying out to Dubai. So I won't do a show on the 29th because we'll be out of the country. So I just hit back, you know, I get back to the people early January. But I do got some shows. I got about 10 topics that I want to hit coming up. It's just all about scheduling them and doing the ones that I want to do first. But we'll get to that. So like I said, if you want to just, you know, the Man Cave mail series is still open. You know what I mean? So if you want to send me an email, if you want me to talk about something on the show, let me know. If you just want to give me a comment, say, Frank, I like what you're doing, whatever, or give me some suggestions. Hey, you know, maybe you should try this, or maybe, you know, you should do that. Just hit me up, man. Send me an email. If you want like a consultation, if you just want to talk to me about something, say, hey, Frank, I want to run something by you. You know what I mean? You know, I can just, you know, we can rap on it a taste, the 30 minutes, an hour, whatever. Hit me up, let me know. I'll let you know, what that's going to look like for you. All of that good stuff. Also, if you want to contribute to the channel financially, you can do that. I am monetized now, so you can super chat, or you know, you can send something if you want via PayPal or Cash App. I'm on Cash App, $View from the Man Cave. And I'm on PayPal as well, paypal.me/View from the Man Cave. I think that's all I got, man. I just want to tell y'all, man, I love y'all. You know, I appreciate it. Appreciate y'all spending time with, you know, me and my sister. You know, we had fun. I know I did. And, you know, but we all been in a pandemic, you know what I mean? So stay 6 feet away from me. You know, wash your hands. And if you take that vaccine, it's on you. You know what I mean? Don't come around me shaking. I know what you did. I want no parts of it. I mean, so on that note, man, y'all be safe, y'all be good, and I'll see y'all next Tuesday. All right, y'all be safe. One.
Oh,